The food service market is on the rise, especially right here in the Middle East. We're seeing unprecedented growth with the vision of 2030 for the Saudi market, with the vision of growth within the United Arab Emirates and many of the GCC markets. This is a channel that is hot and that many companies are looking to capture at this moment.
True.
Today I am with a dear friend, a partner, somebody that I work with quite closely, and we're going to share with you some true insights that can really help you and your businesses to maximize your growth within that field. So, how are you, Doc?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasant day today.
Amazing. So Dr. Elie Daher and I have worked on multiple food service projects, whether it's food manufacturers, food distribution organizations within this geography in here. So, Doc, just just some of our discoveries and findings. What are some of the elements that we can share with our audiences that can make a difference in terms of a successful food service organization from an unsuccessful food service organization? What are we finding today?
Very good. I'm glad we're talking about this because the first call that we normally receive, you and I, is how do I increase my sales? My sales are lagging, or I have good growth on sales, but it's not structured. The other question that we typically have, how do I make it sustainable? So these are 3-4 questions that always come to us as a first call of the order of the day. Then when we engage further and we discuss with the leaders on the root causes of why they don't have an increase in sales, or why is it not structured, or why they cannot be dominant in the market, which they wish to do, we find really 5 key elements that need to be addressed. The first one is really from the overall vision and mission of the company. Okay. Do they have a clear direction of where they want to be in the next few years? They want to be dominant in market. Let's take that as an example, right?
Right, and a lot of organizations have this as their aim, to be the preferred food service distribution company, to be the go-to partner, and this is easier said than done.
Always number one. Why can't we be number 2 or number 3?
Right.
But the question is, dominant in what? Right? Is it dominant in the fine food market? Is it dominant in the QSR market? Is it dominant in coffee shops? You need to define your dominance, because that takes a lot of actions after that to really restructure the organization, match your channels to the products that you have, to the distribution channels that you have, to the language that you will have with the sales professionals that you have put there on the floor, on the ground, because they have different acumen, different competencies, and so forth, to really be able to be efficient in ensuring the growth and the penetration.
So this is quite interesting. One of the elements of a mission and vision, a lot of time it gets to be a bit ambiguous. I want to be the number one in this within they call it the HoReCa channel. What I'm hearing from you here is, HoReCa is quite broad, and maybe internally there is a part of structuring even that vision further to say we want to win in this market, we want to win in this channel, we want to win it with this type of customers, and from that premise we then work backwards to saying, well, what do we need in order to be dominant here? How do we better serve the coffee shops? Because the needs of a coffee shop might be different than the needs of a hotel, and the needs of a hotel is different from the needs of a QSR or today some of the casual dinings that are coming and popping up left and right within the market.
Great. So once you define really where you want to be dominant, which channel you want to be in, then you have to focus your organization. So how do you focus your organization? Basically, you understand the market. So analyze your current customers. You have 2 sections, right? Phase 1 and phase 2. First is, let's understand your house. Let's understand your current customers.
Right.
How are they distributed?
Right.
How are you serving them? What's the commonality between them? What's the difference between them? Where is your 80-20 rule that's coming up? 80% of the revenue coming from normally your 20% of your customers or 20% of your of SKUs. So do this deep analysis to understand really where is your house and where is your market currently today, and develop a market strategy to increase that footprint with the current existing market, right? So this is where segmentation, targeting, and positioning phase one comes in play, addressing the current existing customers and SKUs you have.
You know, it's great that you're sharing this, because what we're finding is a lot of organizations have built large, I would say, volumes haphazardly. In other words, they started acquiring customers left and right, and then all of a sudden they block all their organization in serving these customers, and administratively, operationally, they become, I don't want to say the word slaves, but they become slaves, because these customers are paying the bills. So how do we free up time? How do we actually be able to grow? The market is growing. I mean, some of the things we know, if you go on any of the platforms that offer food, there are thousands and thousands of restaurants. And one of the questions that distributors or food service organizations you want to always ask is, what's your grip? What's your current coverage? How many customers are buying from you? And if you don't know that, you know, compare how many are buying compared to how many can buy, then you're pretty much giving away that for others to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And the way when we do this analysis, and you'll find the distribution of customers per salesperson is not correct, because if you want to focus on a certain channel, you need to really have efficiency in the selling process. So typically, and I've seen this, and we've seen that together, customers that have 150-kilometer long journey for a sales professional going between coffee shops, restaurants, QSRs, and other institutions in a wide geographical area, where if you challenge that, you could have a smaller geographical area, and if you focus only on, let's say, fast food, you will find 500 restaurants of fast food in a very small geographical area. So the question is, why do you have to have the journey from A to B, covering 150 kilometers, covering the 3-4 different channels, selling a number of SKUs, because they're not always common, right? The coffee shops need syrups and all the other stuff, where the fast food needs some cooking material and ingredients to serve their fast food. So you cover a wider range of SKUs, longer trajectory, various channels, and this is inefficient. Challenge is, how can you segment that and target properly, so you create efficiency with less SKUs, more footprint in a particular channel or two, and efficiencies and productivity also in the selling process.
I think this is music to my ear, the concept of, when is a sales professional selling? Driving, that's not selling. They're selling when they are face-to-face with customers, and what you're talking here is a bit about specialization and further penetration. So really having that better coverage within certain areas. So this has been quite useful. Great. So we've covered the vision, mission. We've talked a little bit about the way that the sales team is structured and what they're focusing on. What else we've done?
Yeah, I think we also found organizational issues.
What do you mean?
Okay, so if you look at, so typically when you create a company, you have a certain ideal culture that you want to embrace and put forward. A lot of constructive elements in that culture. People help each other. People support each other. People they go and work as great as a team.
As one team.
As one team.
Collaborative.
Collaborative, exactly. And along the way, we start putting processes and systems. We hire leaders, we hire supervisors, we hire HR, we put finance, we have
supply chain.
Supply chain, you know, the infamous word, right? So we tend to skew that ideal culture to current culture, and these current cultures are not always aligned with the ideal one, so they become more passive or more aggressive in nature.
And so if I can just kind of clarify this, so today the business, we want to be the number one food service organization, we want to be customer centric, but one second, products are not delivered on time. Forecast is not properly communicated, so of course now the customer is calling complaining, and then the salesman or the is blaming this or is blaming that, and then all of a sudden we're like trying to play we're trying to play it's not my fault type of a thing, it's his fault.
Yeah, and you lose also a lot of trust in each other, in each function, if you want to say, because if the sales person goes to the field and sells, and then supply chain does not deliver because they don't have a product, or the demand planner does not forecast those and have them in a hopper, the customer will not wait, and they will flock and then go to some other supplier. So then you have the mistrust in the organization that creates what we call it a defensive organization, where people are just waiting for somebody else to take decisions. They avoid making decisions. They avoid making a first step, and it basically restrains the organization.
And this is a lot what we find when we get approached by companies, by company leaders, that is kind of like a silent killer. It's like it's there, and the leader is wondering what we want to do this. We have resources, we have put money, we have put structure, but what's going on?
Absolutely, and it's like an iceberg, right? So the tip of the iceberg is what you see, but the issues are really buried underwater.
Yes, right.
So you'll see people resigning. You see people not happy. People are basically doing as they're told and not taking the extra mile. It's like hiring them for their hands, not for their brains as well, right?
And this is when we hear things like, what does it matter? What does my opinion matters? Where I've shared that a couple of times and no one is doing anything. The boss ends up doing what's in his mind.
And you wonder why its sales are not increasing.
For example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So that's really an issue. So when you understand the culture and the causal factors of what's causing this culture, and particularly, I will give you some examples. How is your recruiting process? If, for example, your sales people, you need to expand in a territory, and it takes 30 days to find a salesperson, and another 30 days to onboard, and another 30 days to really get him in the business. You lost 3 months of production, and if one salesperson makes X number of dollars in sales, you lost 3 months times X of sales. Why? Because your recruiting process is rigid. The other one, why you have the high turnover in sales?
The first place, yeah. Why are people leaving?
Are you paying the right way? Are you motivating them the right way in terms of compensation? How are you placed within the benchmark of the food service?
Right.
Are you in the top 25 percentile, 50th percentile, 75, or you're out of the scale? And what happened, and we have that a lot, we see that a lot, that companies take the food service as a retail food. And then they benchmark everything on their processes, their pay scale, their recruiting, their competencies of salespeople based on the old model of retail. But it's not geared to the food service business element.
Absolutely. So I want to maybe tackle one other element in here. You spoke a bit about maybe compensation. You spoke a bit about the scale on retail to compared to food service. But today that as a person, I'm not just attracted to money. There are other things that attract me to the job, and among them is the sense of belonging, is the sense of family. It's the collaborative approach that I'm having with my leader, with my colleagues, and of course, how do we see this actually reflected when we end up interacting and getting to see what's going on within the organization?
Very, very good point. Very good point, because that's what you see when you analyze the culture, right? You see people are coming just to do their job, get their salary, and go home, rather than being, excited to come to the work, because they feel they're part of the second home for them. The company is their second home. They feel productive. They feel that the company, they can trust their company in their development, in making sure that they grow in a right way, they develop in the right way, and they produce in the right way, right? And this is really an element, element of trust between organization and the employee. And we see that lacking in a lot of places. They think, okay, well, if you don't sell, if you don't deliver, I'll replace you. But let's understand the root cause, why this person is not delivering or selling and delivering their results.
Right. I think there's a lot of gap when I also looking at sales leaders. And what I mean by sales leaders are the line managers of the direct sales force. And today, the gap we've also identified is people that are managing a sales force are not necessarily people managers. They were salespeople that were good at their job, and they got promoted. And now they are completely out of their comfort zone because we've lost a good salesperson. Now they have to manage other individuals. Or if that's the case, you'd still put a sales target for that sales leader, and you give him responsibility to manage others, and that can be quite daunting,
Yes.
for that person.
Yes. I just wanted to give you an example. I was reflecting on that example. So let's take a salesperson.
Yep.
Take any dominant currency here, whether it's in Saudi or UAE, they're about the same level of currency. Saudi Riyal or Emirates Dirham. Yeah. Right?
They're both pegged to the dollar.
Yeah. So let's say a salaried person gets 10,000 dirham a month. Mm-hmm. He delivers in a month. What do you think in numbers of sale?
Probably about a million plus, depending.
Million plus. A profit margin of a normal SKU would be what?
25%.
25%. So that's 250,000.
Mm-hmm. Gross.
Just gross, right? On a 10,000 person.
Yeah.
So let's do the challenge. If I want to motivate the guy, and if I increase him 20% salary,
that's 12,000.
That's 12,000.
That's quite generous.
So I give him 12,000. He's probably now placing us as a salary scale on a 25 percentile. So I can attract, I can motivate. The guy is more productive. The guy is more efficient. Mm-hmm. The million becomes what?
1.5.
1.5. Here we go.
Or even 1.2. Let's say it went up by 20%.
Went up by 20%, became 1.2 at a 20% or 25%.
25, we utilized it. Yeah. So it's an additional 50,000 that goes to
additional 50,000. I added 2,000 and I got 50,000 of gross. Take all the net that goes, that still have a ratio of 1 to 100.
That's right.
Of that. So we are blocked in our thought process. And this is where I see any organizations are lacking. They're lacking of thinking out of the box, putting these challenges on the table and brainstorm and think, okay, I want to be dominant in that market. Now I distill it down to, okay, dominant in what market and how? So let me align the organization. So I give them the right marching order. And then I look at what is inhibiting the marching orders to deliver, and that's your organizational assessment, right? Whether it's a culture, whether it's a process, whether it's discipline, whether it's leadership behavior as well. So we look at the underlying and we try to remove those inhibiting factors. Now you have basically, all you have is now the salesperson flourishing, having the right training, having the right motivation to go sell, and that's the recipe for success.
This really is a very powerful concept in here where, they say money is like oxygen. Mm-hmm. And give little of it and you're pretty much choking your team, and they're doing the work, but they're looking left and right, and they are possibly looking for this potential increment. While what you've just mentioned is, let's just make our people, let's say, comfortable. First, that allows us to be more selective in getting the better quality individuals, those that are more able and more willing to, let's say, learn and adapt. Then I can focus on building their competencies, their skills. I can expect more from my people. I can hold them more accountable. So as you said, the issues of discipline, of communication, of actually commitment to go out and do the work is all gone. And of course, if if that is not improving, then that's a really simple, let's say, prescription. Maybe that person's not fit for this role, and you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. The other angle you actually mentioned, we talked about it briefly, that I wanted to really emphasize, is the retail food versus food service, right? You have to approach it really as a food service business mind. What does it entail? It entails a lot of changes, right?
The level of competencies, the level of requirements. You got to do your segmentation, targeting, and positioning. You got to understand where the gaps are. You have to know the menu of your customers. You have to be able to know the product functionality. It's not about going and selling based on price. It's being able to understand the impact of the item to someone's menu, how it's going to help them improve the number of customers, improve the average spend, reduce, increase frequency, enhance. So this is all about the product selling story. And in a retail conversation, it's a little bit about eye level is buy level. Let me just fight for this level of space. And yeah, I mean, it does have its challenges, but the complexity is a lot less. None of the stuff I mentioned matters in retail,
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit it on the head, right? And it's called really consultative selling approach. Yeah. You want to be the partner of choice for that customer.
Right.
So you want to come and don't just sell what we call
don't vomit on the person.
Don't vomit, or what we call it in our common language, don't back up the truck and then drop the goods.
Yeah, dump the whole thing on them. Yeah, it's
exactly.
like,
So you really want to understand and how this customer, you want to work as an ally to the customer. And you mentioned the golden formula. Can you repeat that?
Yes, the sales result formula, every single operator out there, the customer doesn't care about the product, but they care about what the product will do for them. So I'm in business to make money, and how I make money is, number one, is I have to get sales. So every single operator has to, I call it the NAF. They want to get more number of customers. They want to get and improve an average spend in the outlets, and they want increased frequency. And they get more customers by innovating. So this is where insight-led sales conversations. So today, there are so many trends in the market. Consumers are demanding certain products be offered in outlets, and if they're not, then guess what? It's the death by choice. If the operator does not evolve his menu, does not innovate, does not keep driving these new innovations based on insights and trends, they'll be replaced by somebody else.
On that, just if you pause here, I just want to let you remember one experience we did when we took the sales professionals, we put them in a room and we taught them ideation techniques from the design thinking method.
Yes.
What was the experience like?
So here we want the sales professional to not just talk about a product, but what the product can do. And just being able to put, I remember the spoon, if that was the example you're referring to, seeing what can be done with the spoon. What else could you do? Or the circles, and seeing how can you come up with more options. So it really pushed people to go completely out of their comfort zone, to innovate, to keep reiterating and coming up with.
Absolutely, and we walked them through 4 steps, right? The first one, observation, empathy, gather inspiration. So we give them some pictures of a restaurant, and then, okay, tell us what you see. What is the environment like? Who are the customers? How they're eating, how they're interacting with their families, are they young couples, they have children, and whatever, right? So that's the observations. And then 2, come up with ideas. Okay, well, you saw all this. Now, look at what other ideas that you can have. I mean, some ideas came up from this exercise were great.
Even changing or adapting the concept. So maybe including some more ideas for families and things that are completely non-product related. So now this is where the consultancy, the ability to think as an equal, as opposed, and actually the operator might be inspired by what the salesperson is coming and they can't wait to see what they're going to bring for them.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ideas, they notice that they've got kids coming with the family, right? They don't have a small area for play. But also they don't have a lot on the kids menu, right? So, okay, now let's inspire. So let's come up with some solutions. So these are the solutions, and they had the discussion with the customer. That's good. But that brings in SKUs. That brings in the whole menu choices. That brings in a lot of more sales. And that becomes the consultative selling approach, and you become the partner of choice. You did not just back up the truck and dumped everything. You actually worked with him to do the effective NAF formula.
Absolutely. Great. Some great insights there. Thanks, Doc. Today, if the saying goes, if you keep on doing what you're doing, you'll keep on getting what you're getting. Now, we know in the food service industry,
Definition of insanity.
because of change, because of competition and the evolution of technology, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're no longer going to be getting the same. You're going to be getting less and less. So we're seeing today players coming into the market with technologies that are allowing operators to place orders. A lot of the food service distribution doesn't have full reach, so they're relying on these partners. I made the mistake of throwing the word small. They're actually becoming bigger in some occasions because they have more accurate identification of these various outlets, and that is quite valuable. So if today I'm blocked, I have my team, and I have a salesperson handling 75 people, 75 clients, and he's going left, right, and center. Okay, so I've maybe want to redirect his time or her time. The question is, how do I really have a step change, in a way stop doing what I'm doing to be able to really take it to that next level for me and my team and my business to go and become this dominant player in the market?
Absolutely, and the word dominant is key. Again, we go back to the same word of dominance. But just one open parenthesis here. So you've talked about the definition of insanity. I am recently going to be launching a book called Prosper or Perish. And really it's about either you have to take that step change in changing your organization, looking at it from out of the box, be agile, be flexible, and work with your team as one engine for growth. You will just perish. The market requires that. The market is very agile, and it's growing at an alarming rate. Now back to your question is, how do we take it to the next step and become more dominant? Well, I'll challenge everybody and throw a question on the table. So what about if money is no object, you can have infinite amount of money, you're going to recruit 50 salespeople, where do you play? Where would you put those salespeople to be the highest efficiency and the highest productivity and the highest sales? That's the question. If you will be able to answer this, and that's really looking at, okay, where I want to be dominant. So start from your mission, vision, and where do I want to be dominant? Is it in the fast food service? Is it in the coffee shop? Is it in fine food? Let's discuss that and let's put that objective. 2, what is the market? Where is it segmented? Where are the clusters? Where is the growth area? Do you have your fingers on the pulse? I understand in KSA, I was reading a report, in 2023, there are 40% growth in hotels alone. And hotels bring in luxury restaurants. Now, if you segment that, you want to play in 5-star, 4-star, or you want to play in the budget hotels, well, that tells you where your growth is. But who's watching that? Who's your market analyst? Right. To be having the finger on the pulse. So define your market, define where you want to play, and then let's say I'm going to now distribute my soldiers to the right place so they can go and get the business. Now, but do you have the right soldiers? Are they trained properly? Do they have the right acumen? Do they have the right behavior? Do they have the right competencies? And are they supported by business development people? If you're going to focusing on coffee shops, do you have support of a barista, for example, that will help you? If you're going after fine food, do you have a chef that goes with you and talk the language and support your sales guys? Remember, these clusters or these channels are what we call a matrix selling, because they need specialty discussion, they need the language, but also you need the sales acumen. So you have a vertical, which is your language, your technical language, I would call it, and you've got the horizontal, which is your sales skills. Because Both of them come together. A chef is a chef. He is great and technical. He's great in creating recipes and putting, the right flavors in the right plates. However, not all of them are right salespeople. The same thing with a salesperson. A salesperson has a lot of sales skills that needs to find an opportunity, manage it and close it at an alarming fast rate. But he doesn't have the right acumen or deep enough knowledge to really discuss with a chef of a five-star restaurant. Therefore, you need a matrix selling.
Absolutely. And this, in a way, is the magic formula. A lot of time in food service sales, you find either people with the right food service or chef experience, barista experience, so they have this functional expertise, but they don't have the behavioral or the sales skills. And we can teach, we can break it down, and in a way help bring this common language so that they can fit in within the proper sales language. And then, of course, the salespeople, chefs can't be with them all the time. We got to up their skill level, and that's where the continuous training, I call this the PICS formula. So the sales team needs product knowledge, industry knowledge, and competitive knowledge. And they get that from the chefs because they work with products on a regular basis, and then we build on that sales knowledge.
And that brings us to now the transformation. We started saying that you need to have a mind shift from a retail food to a food service. Mm-hmm. And that's basically the crux of a food service. If you still behave as a retail food, right, you don't have all these elements, you don't have those complexity. Well, you need to really understand the food service business and shift. And that's the secret recipe of success.
Absolutely. I want to just bring the attention to one small element. See, I love this exercise. If money was no object and you could bring in 50 brand new people to your business, where would you place them? You see, if you ask this question, so if you ask someone, where can you get growth? Existing sales leaders or even business owners, a lot of time, if that question isn't asked first, they'll start looking at limitations. They'll see, well, if I cannot stop servicing my existing customers, I cannot do this, and see, we don't want to think of what can't be done. We want to think of what could be done. Yes. And that is the magical question, is to suspend any beliefs, suspend any old patterns, because this is how we've grown. We gradually started getting and growing. But today, in a market like, for example, the UAE, in the Dubai market, there are probably more than 10,000 plus potential customers out there, if not more. I don't know if any of the food service operators, if any one person, any one company has 10,000 plus outlet that they visit and service. I doubt. And I work with a lot of those organizations. Same thing in the Saudi market. We know that the size of the universe is over 30 plus thousand, and that number is growing just about on Hunger Station we went the other day, and we saw a total 20,000 registered outlets, from burger shops to pizza stores to sandwich stores to, you just name it. Yeah. Right, that are available, 20,000 registered on Hunger Station or some of the other platforms. And again, same number, there is a huge gap between the number of outlets being serviced by any one distributor and the potential in the market. So the key is to stop doing what we're doing, suspend, and then you can say identify and target to where to go, and then simply do the right steps to make it happen.
I want to take this one step further. I don't know your views on Elon Musk. Do you like him?
I don't like him. I don't dislike him.
Neutral.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody else who's listening to us has different views on it.
Absolutely.
But one thing you get from Elon Musk is a sentence: unlearn to relearn. Mm-hmm. And that's important, because unlearning, that's how his secret of success on the space mission. That's how his secret of success in building those electric vehicles with the batteries. So you unlearn. If you are set in your ways because you've been 20 years in the food
service industry or
food retail
right.
industry, right? You've been there for 20 years. You're set in your own ways. You have your processes, your systems and whatever. And what you're trying to do is twist them and match the food service. You're not going to succeed. You have to unlearn. You have to think about it as, let's put this on the side. this is a different baggage. Let me do a startup that is exciting, that is nice, and it's completely different. So I'm unlearning. I physically and mentally take the accepted action that I'm not gonna put any of my assumptions and any my previous 20 years of experience into this. Let's unlearn. Let's bring the fresh ideas together, and let's involve your team. Sit with them, brainstorm. How do we put it together? And that's the relearn factor. And then you'll have a much more agile organization, fit for purpose, and you're on the path of dominance, if you like.
And when people are contributing to to this vision, when they're contributing with ideas, then that becomes
feel ownership.
I'm exactly. completely bought on board to make it happen. Wonderful. So that has been just a small segment of some value addition that we wanted to share with you today. If any of what we've shared sounds familiar to you and you'd like us to you'd like to have a conversation, identify potential fit in terms of being able to help you unlearn to relearn and help actually drive, help you achieve your objectives, your goals, feel free to go ahead and reach us. So until next time.
Until next time.
Sell more, sell faster, and profitably.
Thank you.